So this is the third episode of OP Radio. Welcome. And the topic of today's discussion is prize savings protocol PoolTogether. And we have Leighton here to tell us more about that. Leighton, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, my name is Leighton. I've been working full time in the crypto DeFi world for about three and a half years now. I'm the co-founder of PoolTogether Inc., which is the company that originally started the PoolTogether protocol.
Okay, cool. Okay, and can you give people that maybe have never heard of PoolTogether before? Why don't you tell them what it is?
Yeah, totally. So PoolTogether is basically the best place to save your money in DeFi. So if we start with sort of DeFi, right, the idea of decentralized finance is to recreate financial primitives in a decentralized way on the blockchain. And if you think about from a normal person's perspective, sort of the core financial primitive is savings, right? Your savings account, your bank account. And what PoolTogether is a protocol for what's called prize savings. And it's this really, really cool concept. The basic idea, without sort of explaining the technical side of it, the basic idea is that you deposit your money. It's like a normal savings account in that you can deposit your money, you can take it out whenever you want to. You always have, full liquidity to withdraw your deposit. But unlike a normal savings account where you sometimes get like a very low amount of fixed yield, with a prize savings account, you sometimes get an amount of fixed yield, sometimes not. But you also, in addition to whatever yield you're getting, you also get the ability to win these prizes. So basically, it's from a user's perspective, the value proposition is really simple. Deposit your money, take it out whenever you want to. For as long as your money's deposited, you're going to have a chance to win prizes. And there's thousands of dollars of prizes a day, millions of dollars of prizes a year distributed by the protocol. So just to give like a little high level context number, so far, like the luckiest person who ever used the protocol, they deposited $76 and won, I think, like $43,000. So that's a really unique value proposition, right? If you think about it, this ability to have no loss, you can have your deposit, withdraw it whenever you want to, but while you're deposited, you can have the chance to have really high returns. And it's a mechanism to help people save money by offering that. So that's sort of the high level description of what PoolTogether is. And again, I would categorize it in this broader spectrum of DeFi. And so if the audience isn't familiar with DeFi, again, I mentioned this decentralized finance. And if you're interested in DeFi, I definitely think PoolTogether is sort of like a front door to DeFi, because DeFi has a lot of different primitives that are maybe more complicated, but PoolTogether offers like a very simple way to start using DeFi.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the things I really like about PoolTogether is it's definitely very approachable, and it's a concept that a lot of people can wrap their heads around, and you can describe it in basically one sentence. It's a prize savings protocol. And something interesting that I didn't know before, PoolTogether was my first introduction to a prize savings account. But Leighton, you were telling me that these actually exist in the real world, and is that where the idea came from?
Yeah, well, yeah. So to give people a little background on sort of the backstory, before the specific idea for PoolTogether came, there was the motivation, and the core motivation was what are financial products that have helped people become more financially mobile and more wealthy. So like if you look at history, right, we have all these different financial products that have been invented, whether it's options or credit cards or insurance or even like there's all sorts of different financial products that have been invented, right? And if you look at history, which of those financial products have actually been most effective at helping people who are not wealthy become wealthy? And if you sort of investigate that question, which is what I started with, you actually will come across this idea for prize savings. And that's how I came across this idea. So it's an idea, like you said, that does exist in the quote unquote real world. And it's an idea that's been proven through a lot of research to help people open savings accounts for the first time, to divert money away from lotteries, to help people stop playing the lottery and instead save their money, to get people to save more amounts of money who are already saving, and to get people saved for longer amounts of time. So there's a lot of research sort of empirically showing that this is a financial primitive that helps people become more wealthy. So that was sort of my starting point. in the motivation behind wanting to work on PoolTogether was, hey, how can I contribute to building DeFi protocols that can help people who don't have a lot of money, right? If you look at DeFi protocols, a lot of them are built for people who are highly financially sophisticated. They're built for options traders. They're built for, LPs, things like that. But I wanted to specifically focus on something that was built for people who didn't have a lot of capital. So that's where the idea came from. And I apologize, I'm probably getting a little long-winded here. But to the second part of the question, right? So that's sort of where the idea came from. Why is this interesting on a blockchain? So I think what makes PoolTogether and what makes price savings in general way better facilitated on a blockchain with smart contracts as opposed to facilitated in the traditional financial system, there's a few things. The first is that you have this auditability and transparency. So in the traditional financial system, right, you don't have any way to see, how much money is deposited, how much yield is being generated, how is that yield being distributed, how do I know it's being fairly distributed? With PoolTogether, since the source code is all open source and anyone can use it, anyone can fork it, and anyone can audit it, and PoolTogether Inc., the company, has actually hired professional third-party auditors to audit it for security. You have this level of transparency and auditability that you just can't have in the traditional financial system. And when you have something like price savings, that transparency and auditability is really important. So that's one reason why it's better on a block. The second,
yeah, those.
Oh, sorry.
In the quote, yeah, sorry, just to interrupt. In the quote unquote real world, I mean, you're sort of assuming that those prizes are being given out fairly, right? But it's kind of a black box, and you can't be certain.
Right. You're making an assumption there. You're also making assumptions on like, hey, does the actual amount given away correspond to the amount of yield generated, right? Like you're making all sorts of assumptions that you can't really look at, where on a blockchain you can. For example, on a blockchain, I can tell you right now, there's $37 million deposited into PoolTogether on Optimism, and you can look and see that generates, however many thousands of dollars a day in yield. And so that's a big difference.
Yeah, so vastly more transparent.
That's more transparent. Yeah, and then the second thing, which I also think is really cool, is it's more scalable. So because the protocol is administrated by smart contracts, right? So that means there's no cost to really administrate it, right? If one more person deposits into the protocol, that doesn't increase anyone's cost. It's the protocol, it operates on its own, right? It's smart contracts at the center. And so if you contrast that to the traditional financial system, these types of programs, because they are especially appealing to people who have less money, are typically very costly to administrate. And so what you find is that when they are administrated in sort of the traditional financial system, there's all sorts of sort of onerous requirements put around them. It's like, you have to have this amount of a deposit. You have to have it for this long. You have to make sure that you have to have, at least 30 days before you're eligible to win anything. You're only eligible to win, there's just all sorts of variations of those types of weird rules. And the reason those rules are in place is because it's not being automatically administrated by a smart contract. Instead, it's being administrated by some sort of centralized institution. And so by putting this financial primitive on the blockchain, it becomes actually far, far more scalable and far more accessible and far, far more appealing because you don't have all these sort of stipulations around it. So that's the second thing.
Right. So because it's a smart contract, you can automate this stuff, which makes it a lot more scalable.
Right. Exactly. Because when we talk about the PoolTogether protocol, what we really are referring to is the set of smart contracts that live on the. And anyways, I am getting long-winded. So the last one I'll say. Really
fast. This is great.
Okay, good. I don't know, but the last one I'll say really fast is the last big advantage, in my opinion, and it is the user ownership. So the protocol is administrated automatically by the smart contracts, but in terms of there are some parameters, right, that still need to be controlled, and those are controlled by the pool token holders. And you can get the pool token by using the PoolTogether protocol. And so that is another thing that's really cool about a decentralized piece of software administrating this rather than having a centralized institution administrate it, is that it can actually be user owned and the governance of it can be decentralized. So I think those are, again, just to go back all the way to the original question, I think, yes, this concept is very popular in the traditional financial system, but I do think it works far, far better deployed on a blockchain. And so really the question is, how do we best get the hundreds of billions of dollars deposited into prize savings accounts in the traditional financial system migrated onto Optimism?
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I just want to hit on your last point, your third point. That is sort of one of the main value propositions of Web3, right? Is that the users accrue ownership of these protocols. And that's exactly what Leighton is describing here, is that you have some ownership and decision-making power in the future of the protocol.
Yes.
And then the other, and then just to kind of wrap up those 3 points, I love this because it's something that is uniquely enabled by blockchain. I think it opens up some unique angles there, and it's just a great use case for something to be put on the blockchain. I don't think I think there's some things that maybe make it on the blockchain that don't necessarily need to be, but I really see the value in having a prize savings protocol like this on the blockchain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say I do think that's correct to say it's uniquely enabled because, again, I'm speaking by analogy, but it's a rough analogy to sort of the traditional financial system with these prize savings accounts, because the way they work in the traditional financial system is very different in some ways than what it works on a blockchain. And so, although there is analogies to it in this traditional financial system, I would say, what is happening with PoolTogether is really unique. And okay, I'm just going to touch. I'm going to go off script for a second. Just touch on one other reason why I think this is really unique, is because the PoolTogether protocol, you can do things with it that you just simply can't do in the traditional financial system. So, for example, one really fun aspect of the PoolTogether protocol is you can, if you make a deposit into the protocol, you can actually delegate all of your any yield and any winnings you get to another wallet. Right. And so that's just not possible in the traditional financial system, right? I can't go to a bank, make a deposit and say, hey, direct all the yield from this deposit to this other wallet address. And so there are like these other things these other benefits that we don't have time to dive into all the details on, but they're fun to think about.
Very cool. Okay, so that was great, Leighton. Thank you for that. I think we've sort of set the stage nicely for what PoolTogether is and why it exists on the blockchain. That was a great introduction for maybe people who aren't familiar with it or are new to DeFi and crypto. But maybe for people who are more familiar with DeFi, how would you compare it to other DeFi protocols? Like, what makes it unique in that context?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, fundamentally, if I'm using the sort of the economic wonky word to describe it, what PoolTogether offers is high variance returns, right? So it's a place where you can get a higher variance in your returns. Like if you can go to Aave, obviously, or other sort of just borrowing and lending protocols, you can deposit and you can earn some sort of fixed interest rate. But with PoolTogether, what you'll get, if you look at it mathematically, it's actually quite interesting. On average, you actually will end up getting about the exact same return as you would get if you went to like Aave directly. But there's higher variance. Some people will get less and some people will get much, much more. And that's sort of what is the unique value prop, is this ability to get access to high variance without needing to risk your principal. That's sort of the key. Because typically people are attracted to the opportunity for outsized returns. That's why people buy all sorts of rubbish tokens and put their money in all sorts of unsecure protocols. They're trying to chase some like 1,000x return. And so, but typically when you're chasing those returns, you have to risk your principal. And so PoolTogether gives you the ability to have exposure to outsized returns without risking your principal. So that's, I think, what makes it unique as a DeFi protocol. There's no other DeFi protocol that does that. That gives you no principal risk, no risk on, by principal, I mean like your original deposit. You're not risking your original deposit, no principal risk, but combine that with the opportunity for large returns. You can't get that anywhere else. And of course, I should say here, because I don't know how novice people in the audience might be, obviously there are risks involved in using any DeFi protocol. And so when I say no principal risks, et cetera, what I'm saying is in relation to the intended operation of the smart contracts and the collateral being used. But obviously there are risks inherent in the DeFi ecosystem that you should understand when you're using these things.
Yes. Caveat, disclaimer, there's always the risk of there's always smart contract risk, right? Whenever you're dealing with any of these.
Correct. Yes. And there's lots done to mitigate that in terms of, third-party professional audits and security bounties and et cetera. But that risk is always non-zero.
Leighton, I want to push back just a little bit or just have you clarify, because you said that PoolTogether is, how did you phrase it? One of the only protocols where you can get this kind of yield without risk to the capital. But what about protocols like Aave or Curve, right? How would you compare PoolTogether to protocols like that?
Well, so yeah, that's a great question. So the difference is with PoolTogether, with Aave and Curve, you have a zero chance of let's say you deposit $1,000, you have a zero chance of getting a 2x return in a month, right? Your chance is zero. It will never ever happen. But you have let's say you have like 100% chance of getting a 2% return, right? Something like that. With PoolTogether, again, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but with PoolTogether, if you deposit $1,000, you have a non-zero chance of getting a 2x return in the next 30 days. So that's it, but then you also have a less than 100% chance of getting like the 2% return. So you're again, it comes down to like you're going to get a higher variance return. On the average, most depositors are going to end up being better off, at least today or over the last year. Pretty much all depositors end up being better off than like depositing into Aave directly, and a part of that is because the yield is there's additional yield being given out by the protocol beyond what's just being generated in the yield. There's like extra, so that's a little bit of a caveat, but that would sort of be the comparison point, I guess, to bring it back to your question. Like with Curve, yes, you are going to have some whatever guaranteed yield rate, but you're going to also have a zero chance of doubling your money in a week or whatever. And with PoolTogether, yes, you'll have a different sort of expected yield rate, but you'll also have this potentially higher upside as well.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So if I were to just try and sum that up, it's that you have a much higher potential upside with PoolTogether. There's also the chance that you could be earning less at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
But on average, if you look at the amount of depositors and how much they earn on average, the average savings are higher on PoolTogether.
Correct. And I mean, and on Optimism right now, it's like, yes, it's like you're 100% guaranteed to have more. Oh shoot, there's one other thing I want to say about that. One other thing I do want to touch on is we've been really diving into the economics of it, right? Like sort of the mathematics of it. How does it work out exactly? But the other part of it is just it's more fun, right? It's more engaging, and that's the human taking. I like to say there's sort of two types of financial products traditionally. We have ones that take human psychology seriously, but are really bad for you financially, right? That's where you have like lotteries and like gambling or sports betting or whatever. Like those things are fun to use, but they're actually really bad for you financially. And then you have things that are like
really Robinhood.
Yeah, well, exactly. Going YOLO on Robinhood, right? That's the same thing. Really fun to use, really bad for you financially. But then on the flip side, you have things that are really boring to use and good for you financially. So you have things like index funds, or you have things like traditional savings accounts. Those are good for you. They're very, very boring. They do not take human psychology seriously. So what PoolTogether I think uniquely does, what Prize Savings I should say uniquely does, is it takes human psychology seriously of sort of providing this gamification layer on savings, but it also does it in a way that's financially good for you, where you're not risking your principal. At the end of the day, you're saving money. And so there is this psychological element to it that I think is just as, if not more important than the economics of it.
Yes, I can confirm that I absolutely loathe logging into my Charles Schwab account. It's not a pleasant experience.
And again, let me say one more thing. Sorry, I would also say this too: is most people who use PoolTogether, they're also using other ones too, right? This is not a binary thing. This is like, hey, it's both and. It's you can be using Aave directly and PoolTogether and anything else you want.
Gotcha. Yeah. Funny enough, so I have used PoolTogether. I have some money in the Prize Savings account, and I logged in today, and I swear this was not planned. I'm not making this up. I won a prize. So there you go. It wasn't the huge prize that Leighton has described, but it was a little something. So that money is working for me.
Yeah, that's and that touches on. Well, first off, I'm glad you won that, and that touches on.
It's my third time.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that touches on obviously a lot of this too comes out in terms of like how healthy is this financially. A lot of it comes into how do the prizes get distributed, right? Because if you have, let's say you have $100,000 prize a week, that might be more exciting, but it's going to be mathematically speaking, it's going to be a lot worse for for most people. So that's why what the Pool Together protocol does, which is really cool, is it has this sort of bifurcated prize distribution where yes, there's these large headline prizes, but then there's also lots of small prizes, and those small prizes essentially work as an average APR that you're getting, but then you also have these chance for these larger prizes too.
Right, right. Leighton, do you want to talk about, I know Mr. Silberling would love to hear about some stats. Do you have some numbers you can give us?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did want to give a little high level context for like, okay, what's happening with Pool Together and Optimism. So right now, Optimism is the number one network that Pool Together's on in terms of it's the most used network, it has the most deposits, has the most depositors. As of a few minutes ago when I looked at this, it looks like there's $37 million currently deposited into Pool Together and Optimism. There's 14,500 unique depositors, which is really awesome. 100% of all depositors right now are getting OP tokens. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. Like, taking some of the mechanics aside, for the last year, being in Pool Together is just going to be better than being like an Aave. And so if you're anyone who's deposited is getting OP rewards, it's a guaranteed. But then additionally, in the last 8 weeks or so, there's been almost 1,000 unique wallets have won prizes, and there's been over $100,000 in prizes distributed. Obviously, you're one of those winners, or actually, it looks like you won 3 times. So you're that's just to give you some high level context for like what's the size of Pool Together, what does it look like on Optimism, and obviously, what we want to see in the Pool Together community is to see more and more deposits of the protocol, which will lead to these larger and larger headline prizes, right? So I think we sort of have a theory in the Pool Together community that once you can get to hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in prizes per week, which again doesn't require that much money, that's like $500 to $1 billion. That's when DeFi sort of takes off. That's when sort of everyone's like, wait, why would I not try this thing out? Why would I not use this thing? So that's sort of the framing on the high level goals for the protocol.
Very cool. Yeah, just to recap that. So $37 million deposited on Pool Together on Optimism, almost 15,000 depositors. That's amazing. And you earn OP. When I log into Pool Together, I can see the OP that I'm accruing, which allows me to participate with the Optimism Collective and participate in Optimism Collective governance.
Yes, wait, can I add one
more?
Go
ahead, Leighton. Yeah.
There is, in terms of the OP token for the governance, I do want to highlight there's a group of people in the Pool Together community that created the Pooly Collective. And so if you get OP tokens from the protocol, you can delegate to the Pooly Collective and they will participate in Optimism governance on your behalf.
I had another question, Leighton, which is that earlier when we were talking about some of the value propositions of Pool Together, you mentioned it's user owned. Did you say that users of the protocol also accrue Pool Together tokens? Because I haven't seen that on my end. How does that work? How do I get Pool Together? How do I?
Yeah, well, okay. So that's a great question. So yes, I did say that, and I think I guess I should have qualified that. Historically, that has been true. Well, there's always been different ways of getting pool tokens. Right now, there is not, just by depositing, you don't automatically get them. Although I do expect that there's been talk in the governance forums about restarting that. So I do expect that to restart. So right now, though, there are still both, if you join the Pool Together Discord, basically you can see there's a lot of different ways to get pool tokens right now. And so when I said that, I was sort of making a generalized statement of what it has been like historically for the past few years. But right now, that's not true just by depositing, but I do expect that will be true in the near future.
Nice. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I want my OP and pool. I want my O pool at the same time. I want my cake and eat it too.
Yeah, and your USDC prizes too.
There you go. Okay, this is great. I'm curious, Leighton. You guys started on layer 1 Ethereum, right? Pool Together first started.
What 3 years ago?
3 years ago. And so, can you walk me through sort of the thinking or what prompted the move to layer two and what prompted the move to Optimism?
Yeah, so I would say in layer two in general, gas fees have been a huge limiting factor for the growth of the protocol as well as the utility of the protocol to normal people, right? So I've talked a lot in this call about how PoolTogether is designed to help people save money. It's designed sort of as a consumer-friendly DeFi primitive. And we had a huge problem, as the blockchain, as Ethereum got more popular with gas fees. If we rewound about 1 year ago today, it would probably cost something like $100 in transaction fees to deposit into PoolTogether. And obviously that's just totally unacceptable. And it just makes the protocol useless to the people that who have the most to gain from using it.
And then you also have to sign a transaction if you win and to claim a prize, right?
Yeah, although at the time last year that wasn't true. Actually, they automatically were pushed to you, so that part was a little bit different. But that's exactly part of what's that brings us to the next point. So getting to layer two in general was really important because layer two obviously enables much lower transaction fees. So right now it costs 5 to 15 cents to deposit into PoolTogether. So it actually does start working. And again, obviously you guys want to see transaction fees lower, everyone does, but it starts to make sense for people who don't have a ton of money. And as you talked about, it opens up the design space because yes, you do have to actually run a transaction to claim your prizes. And so that, again, that's going to cost maybe 5 or 10 cents to do. And so if that costs $25 to claim a prize, it doesn't make sense to claim a $10 prize. And so you're able to have a much wider diversity of prize distributions on a layer two. So that's, I think, what has really motivated and why I'm so excited to finally see the protocol somewhere where people can sort of accessibly use it. But then in terms of Optimism specifically, I think, PoolTogether, I guess I can only speak for myself, but I do see it as a social good. I do see it as sort of this public social good infrastructure that's helping people, save more money and become more financially healthy. And Optimism obviously has a really heavy focus on public goods as well. And I think Ethereum in general has a heavy focus on that. And Optimism has sort of picked up that part of the culture and really run with it. And so I do also think there is a heavy alignment there from more of just a cultural perspective between the communities. And again, I'm only speaking for myself, but I do think if you hang out in the PoolTogether Discord, you will just see that reflected. There's just a lot of helpful people. You're not going to see people who are looking for quick money or who are looking to who are just there to talk about prices or whatever. You're going to see people who really care about making a positive impact on the world through blockchain technology. And again, I'm not disparaging any other crypto communities or blockchains because I think you find those people in all of them. But I do think Optimism has made a big emphasis on that, and I think PoolTogether has as well.
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, public goods aside, which I agree with you, savings, that definitely sounds like a public good to me, financial health, but also this idea of sort of long-termism. That's definitely a cultural value that we have here at Optimism. So I would agree with you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cultural alignment there. Cool. One other thing I wanted to add on to the other possibilities that might be enabled is you could have maybe some other incentives for users of PoolTogether, right? You could potentially give NFTs to certain users, or have there been any ideas around stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, there's a very interesting design space around incentivizing savings, right? And it's not just getting the USDC returns, although those are obviously important. There's obviously also a lot of fun things. Again, taking human psychology seriously, which comes in the form of just earning NFTs, or you can imagine earning in the community. There's been a lot of talk about issuing pool points, which again, no monetary value, but just sort of a fun thing you can start accruing and then redeem for certain things. So yeah, there's definitely a big design space in the protocol. I should say this while we're talking. The protocol, again, it's open, it's composable. And so if you're in the audience and you're like, hey, it would be really cool to award people who deposit into PoolTogether with XYZ, you can do that. You don't have to ask me for permission. You could ask for my help and I can help you design that. But it's an open composable protocol. And so, I mean, again, I'll just geek out for a second because it's just so cool that what we essentially have here is a a global multiplayer savings game, right? Or like it's like a single shared savings account the whole world is depositing into and withdrawing from, and anyone all around the whole world is giving prizes out to, and sort of incentivizing, right? And that's just like so cool. So yes, I guess I'm talking about it a little abstractly, but that is all possible. And there are some things going on specifically right now, which I don't know if you want to touch on now, but we could talk about those as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. A global savings account, and I would add that it's modular, right? So and open source, so that people could potentially tap into it and build off of it.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, people can tap into it, and all the code is open source. No one owns the code. It's free to use. You can either tap into it, or you can fork it. You can create your own. You can copy paste it and publish it, and do whatever you want with it. And I'm here to help you no matter what.
Gotcha. Yeah. And sorry, Leighton, what were you alluding to in your last question? Some of the initiatives.
I was just alluding to, just for the audience, that right now there's the OP Quest going on. And so there is a specific, so if you deposit, there's sort of a specific extra bonus where it's just an NFT. Again, there's not like a monetary value, but it's a fun thing where if you do the quest for PoolTogether, which you can read about on the optimism.io, the quest is to have $20 deposited for at least 3 days, at least 72 hours. And if you complete that quest, you can then claim the NFT. Again, that's going to be in addition to the OP tokens you get for your deposit, as well as any prizes you get and anything else. But yeah, I wanted to highlight that. That's been really popular. People have been collecting that NFT, and we are also working on some stuff with Quixotic or Quix. They changed their name, the NFT marketplace on Optimism. So listen for news about that coming too.
Yeah. So just in case people aren't familiar with what Leighton is describing is Optimism Quests. There are 18 projects where you can participate in this sort of learn to earn model, and you use the protocol, and they all have different sort of tasks that you can accomplish. And once you've accomplished them, you can claim an NFT. So that's what Leighton is describing. And if you want to go directly to that, the URL is app.optimism.io/quests. I have a somewhat selfish question, Leighton. Since I was deposited before Quests, am I eligible for the NFT, or do I need to make another deposit, or remove my deposit and redeposit?
No, yes, that's a good question. You are good. You should be eligible to claim right now. It's a pretty simple, yeah. Basically, it just reads the wallet to see if it's had an average balance of over $20 in the last 3 days. So as long as you have that, you're good to go.
Awesome. Okay, I know what I'm going to be doing after this call. I'm going to be collecting my Optimism Quests PoolTogether TV Baby NFT.
Yeah, it's really cool. The visual's great.
Yeah, we have a great artist in house. Shout out Pifafu that drew those. So we're super stoked. She's really making the brand sparkle. So I feel like we're kind of winding down here, Leighton. Is there anything else you want to let people know, or perhaps you could let them know where they should go if they want to learn more about PoolTogether?
Yeah, well, I think, first and foremost, if you're on this, spaces, you're probably somewhat involved in DeFi. You're probably, or at least interested. So I would say, first and foremost, come over to the PoolTogether Discord. That's a place where you can ask questions, sort of really actually take part in the community, sort of take the next step in your crypto journey. If you go to pooltogether.com/Discord, you'll get a custom invite link via that website, so you can join. On the flip side, if you just want to deposit, then yes, obviously you can do that right now. If you're new, if you don't have like a wallet set up or things like that, I would again recommend the Optimism Get Started page, so you can find out how to download a wallet, how to get USDC, and then actually make your deposit. So that's how you can use the protocol. But again, for people on this call, I'm going to assume you're sort of interested in DeFi, and I would encourage you to take the next step of actually joining the community and participating and building what's happening here.
Yeah, that's great. So just to reiterate, folks, if you already have a wallet set up, you can hop right into the PoolTogether Discord, or maybe go to app.optimism.io/quests and do some of the quests. If you're brand new to crypto, we have this really great initiative called Get Started, and that's what Leighton was referencing there. So that'll take you from 0 to 100. It'll get you set up with the wallet, allow you to deposit ETH. And the URL for that is app.optimism.io/get-started, or you can just go to optimism.io, and both those links are up there in the main nav. So
Awesome.
Leighton, This has been delightful and elucidating. I so appreciate you coming on OP Radio.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, anyone who has questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Always happy to help however I can.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we'll close it out, guys. Hope you have a great day. Stay optimistic, and we'll see you on the internet.
Talk to you later.